The end of the war did not happen over a planet. It did not happen over a resource or a border. It happened at the center of the Great Void, where the Prime Radiance waited. For the alien collective known as the Ascendants, the Prime Radiance was not just a leader, it was a physical god. It was a sentient stellar consciousness, a being composed entirely of hypercompressed plasma and electromagnetic intent. It had no home world because it was its own world. It was a sun that had learned to think, a star that had learned to hate. To the Ascendants, biology was a failed experiment. They had long ago uploaded their minds into the radiance, becoming part of its eternal, burning light. They viewed the human race as a disease of the dirt, small, fragile carbon-based maggots that crawled on rocks and relied on the crude laws of physics. Your momentum is a prison, the Prime Radiance broadcasted, a psychic signal so powerful it caused the electronics in human ships to melt and the crews to bleed from their eyes. You rely on the collision of atoms. You rely on the weight of lead. We are the light. We are the heat. We are the state of being that exists beyond your petty inertia. You cannot strike a star. You cannot wound the sun. The human fleet was being erased. The great battleships of the Terran Navy, the pride of the empire of inertia, were being turned into expanding clouds of iron vapor before they could even get within 1,000,000 miles of the radiance. Lasers were absorbed. Missiles were pre-detonated by solar flares. Even the great cinder ships and vacuum extractors were useless against a being that operated on the scale of a celestial body. On the bridge of the UNS Absolute Zero, Admiral Thorne stood in the dark. The ship's main power was offline to prevent the radiance from sensing its energy signature. They were running on life support and cold logic. Thorne was a man who had seen the gospel of momentum conquer every corner of the galaxy, and he wasn't about to let a thinking light bulb tell him that physics had a limit. "He thinks he's a god because he's got no mass," Thorne whispered, his voice echoing in the silent, darkened bridge. "He thinks he's untouchable because he's made of light. But even a star has a center. Even a sun has to obey the math." He looked at his tactical officer. "Is Project Lgininus on intercept?" "Yes, Admiral," the officer replied, his face illuminated only by a dim red backup light. "It's been accelerating for 6 months. It's past the Neptune gravity slingshot. It's currently at 0.2% of light speed. No electronics. No reactor. No signal. Just 10 kilometers of dead weight." Project Lgininus was the ultimate expression of the human soul. While the rest of the fleet was fighting a distraction war, the human industrial colonies had spent years constructing a weapon that wasn't a weapon at all. It was a kinetic kill vehicle on a planetary scale. It was a 10-kilometer-long rod of solid, forged tungsten, wrapped in a jacket of depleted uranium. It had no engines, no guidance computers, and no radio. It had been launched from a massive electromagnetic rail array on the Moon, then guided through 3 different planetary gravity wells to gain speed. It was a silent, cold, invisible needle moving through the dark. The Prime Radiance was so focused on the loud human fleet, so arrogant in its mastery of energy, that it never saw the spear coming. "Why do you still fire your little metal pebbles?" The radiance pulsed, vaporizing another human destroyer. "Do you not see? I am the fire that consumes the pebble. I am the..." The radiance stopped. A flicker of doubt rippled through its plasma. Its magnetic sensors finally detected a displacement in space. Something was coming. Something that didn't have a heat signature. Something that didn't have an electrical charge. Something that was just heavy. At 20% of the speed of light, the math of the universe changes. It doesn't matter what you're made of. It doesn't matter if you're a god, a star, or a ghost. When 10 billion tons of tungsten hits you at relativistic speeds, the energy released is not chemical or nuclear. It is kinetic. The Prime Radiance tried to flare. It tried to project a magnetic field to deflect the object. But you cannot deflect a 10-kilometer rod of solid metal with magnets when it is moving that fast. The spear didn't care about the heat. The tungsten, with a melting point higher than any other metal, held its shape for the few microseconds it needed to reach the core. The impact. There was no sound in the vacuum, but the light was enough to blind every observer for a light year in every direction. The spear hit the heart of the Prime Radiance. In that microsecond, the kinetic energy of the impact was converted into a burst of power that rivaled a supernova. The god of light didn't just die, it underwent a catastrophic collapse. The momentum of the spear was so great that it punched clean through the stellar entity, carrying the god's own core out the other side in a spray of dying plasma. The Prime Radiance, the eternal, the unbreaking, the sun that thought, shattered. Its magnetic cohesion failed. Its light went from white to yellow to a dim, cooling red. The eternal light of the ascendance was extinguished by a big, cold, heavy stick. On the bridge of the absolute zero, Thorn watched the monitor as the white light faded into a cloud of drifting gas. The god was now just a nebula. Gospel of Momentum, verse 100, Thorn said, finally lighting a cigar. The more energy they have, the harder they pop when you hit them with a rock. He looked at the wreckage of the greatest being in the galaxy. Physics doesn't care if you're a god, son, Thorn said to his young officer. It only cares about mass and velocity. And we're the guys who own the mass. The war was over. The Ascendants, their god destroyed and their collective mind shattered, surrendered within the hour. They realized that they were living in a universe of solid objects, and they were fighting a species that had mastered the art of the hard hit. Humanity had proven the final truth of the saga. You can evolve beyond the flesh. You can turn yourself into light. You can hide in the fifth dimension or live in the heart of a star. But as long as you exist in this universe, you are subject to the decree of density. We don't need magic. We don't need divinity. We just need a bigger hammer and a long enough runway. The empire of inertia stood alone at the top of the galactic food chain. Not because we were the brightest, but because we were the heaviest. This has been Apex Sci-Fi. The spear has landed. The god is dead. That if you enjoyed the grand finale of Saga 12, hit that like button. Comment below, what should be the theme of our next saga? Subscribe to join the empire. The void is silent. The math is settled.